Hello, my name is Shulamit, and I'm the creator of the MediSounds process. Every Sunday at noon, I host a Zoom meeting for us to explore wisdom teachings and experience the healing power of MediSounds. These meetings are made possible by generous donors. Please help this site thrive by liking and subscribing, and please join our newsletter at greatoctave.com to receive notices of our events. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are from, calling in today. I'm glad to have your participation. Last night, CNN televised a George Clooney show called Good Luck and Good Night, which was about a very famous journalist in the post-war era, Edward R Murrow. He had broadcast from Europe during the war by radio about what was going on there, and he was very familiar to the American public and very trusted. And after the war, he came back and he was working for NBC, which at the time was a fledgling organization. This is the beginning of television in the 1950s. And he took on, as one of his, I wouldn't say projects, not quite the right word, he actually challenged Joe McCarthy. So I don't know how many of you are aware of Joe McCarthy. I'm certainly aware of him because I was a young girl in the 1950s. In fact, I even saw him on the floor of the Senate when my family took a trip down to D.C. He was a very scary individual. He was accusing people without trial of being communist sympathizers or fellow travelers or communists, and a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of famous people were banned from working, particularly in Hollywood. It springs to mind. I mean, it wasn't only in Hollywood, but that springs to mind. And people were forced to sign loyalty papers, and it was really, really scary. And he was a senator, a junior senator from Wisconsin, and he pretty much ran roughshod over everybody with the advice of a man whose name is Roy Cohn, who still has influence today. And he did that quite successfully for a few years. But Edward R Murrow, at great risk to himself, at risk to the network of NBC, he took on this particular problem and confronted this man and he wasn't the only one, but he was instrumental in bringing him down. Clooney produced the show. He also made a movie about it, I think, a few years ago. But this was a Broadway production that had its last show last night, and CNN broadcast it to the world. It tells the story, and at the end, it also flashes pretty much our history from that time to now. All the upsets we've gone through, the assassination of John Kennedy, of Martin Luther King, of Robert Kennedy, of all kinds of demonstrations we had against the war. I mean, we've been through quite a lot since the 1940s. Actually, I think we're always through a lot because that's the nature of reality and the nature of people and so on. But it was very stirring because basically what he was saying, what Clooney said at the end in an interview, but also the message of the play was that we have to stand up and that we've been through these troubles before. And so far, anyway, we have prevailed. But we prevail because of the honesty and the commitment of individuals. And it was recalled also, that these fights have been going on since the beginning of our republic. And they've been going on for centuries. For centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries. The French have an expression, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, which means the more it changes, the more it is the same. There was a panel discussion after the show with journalists from the networks and from like the New York Times and so on. And people were really struggling to understand why journalism has taken such a dive and why people don't believe in it anymore and so on. And we all know this story. But what was interesting to me was that Karen Swisher, who is a writer and a podcaster who has pretty much covered Silicon Valley, she's a very bright woman and unafraid. Elon Musk hates her, and she posted his negative comments about how terrible she was on her book jacket. Anyway, she was saying, why are we playing the victims here? We're not the victims. There's a lot of really exciting new stuff that's happening, that's coming out of the woodwork. There's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of individuals going after niche markets rather than, this kind of one voice that we used to have. People like Edward R Murrow and Walter Cronkite, maybe you don't remember them, but they were like the moral authority of the nation, and they were very well respected, and they had huge sway. Those days are gone, right? And now it's actually a lot of individuals who are voicing their opinions and gathering around them like-minded people. So there were things to be hopeful here about, and I want to. I mean, I think it's interesting to go back to the Greeks, because the Greek mythology, which when I was a child I found kind of like foolish and silly, but now I really respect it. I mean, here you have, in Greek mythology, you have these they're gods, right? Very powerful entities that control the world, but they don't act rationally. They act in a very petty way, out of jealousy, out of greed, out of acquisition, out of revenge, and they wreak havoc on the world below while they play their little games. Havoc on innocent people. So I really think it's a very good representation of life, And if you think about the myths, they're extremely powerful. And I just want to mention two, because I think they resonate with some of the characters that we see in the world today. One of them is, of course, Icarus. Daedalus was a builder, I think an architect. He designed the labyrinth, and he was very, very skilled, and he had a son whose name was Icarus. The king got very frightened that Daedalus had given away the secrets of the labyrinth, and that the monster that they had enclosed there could escape, the Minotaur. So he and his son were imprisoned in the labyrinth as well, and Daedalus made wings for he and his son to escape out of feathers and mud or whatever. And when they were leaving, he warned his son not to swim too close to the sea, because he could be pulled down by the wings could be dragged down by the moisture of the sea, and to be careful not to fly too close to the sun. And of course, Icarus did not see the wisdom of his father's words, and he flew too close to the sun, and his wings melted, and he crashed into the earth and died. So that's where the expression flying too close to the sun comes from. And it's a reminder about hubris. It's a reminder about getting too far over yourself, believing when you are in a position of competence or power or success that you can do anything, and that rules, and especially gravity, does not apply to you. So this is a timeless message. The other myth that came to mind today is the myth of Midas. Midas was actually a real potentate, king, whatever, in ancient Greece, but there's also a myth about him, which is he was rewarded for his good work by a particular individual, and this individual had great power, was Dionysus, And Dionysus said, "You can have anything you want, Midas." And Midas said, "I want everything that I touch to turn to gold." And so it happened. And he was thrilled. And he had pride at how wonderful and how amazing that he got this incredible gift that he could turn anything he wanted into gold. But then there came a little problem, which is when they brought him his food and he touched his food, it turned into gold, so he couldn't eat it. He touched a flower and it turned into gold, so he couldn't smell it. And then his daughter came and cried to him, "Where have all the flowers? Where have all the flowers gone? They're all rigid, they're all cold, they're all dead." And he went to comfort his daughter and he touched her and she turned into gold. Then he tried to reverse what seemed like a gift into a curse. He tried to reverse it. He begged to have it reversed. So there's a lot of different endings, of course, because these myths, the stories change over time. But the basic story is that he died of starvation. So think about it. These stories have a lot of levels and they mean quite a lot in terms of not just the lives of these people who are messing with ours, but for us too. To remember to have priorities about what's important, to not allow acquisition, desire for things or whatever, property, to become your sole aim, because otherwise you will starve to death. And I don't mean just because your food turns to gold, but for obviously other reasons. But I just wanted to end on a more positive note. Things are very difficult, and I don't have to tell you that because you know it. And there's a lot of worry, concern, threat that's occurring in the atmosphere. It's affecting us. It's affecting our sleep. I have many people who I work with who tell me they have difficulty sleeping. Even though our own lives might be proceeding well enough at the moment, we understand that there's threat on the horizon. But we have to be careful not to give in to despair or hopelessness. We have to be careful. We're not prominent people in the sense that we have a big megaphone like Edward R Murrow had, or Walter Cronkite, or any of these people from the heyday of television journalism. But we do have power within our families and our communities, in our friendships and so on, to stand up against things that aren't right and to stand up. And I think that we're going to come out of this, but we have to come out of it with principles intact. There are more, well, I don't know if there are more, but there's certainly very different dangers that exist today than existed in prior times, specifically because of AI. I mean, it's fascinating and also frightening and troubling. You can manipulate any image and any voice, and it can appear very, very real to you as the viewer. So you have to really be careful what you buy into. Very, very careful, because it's going to get harder and harder to trust the evidence of your own eyes. So how about trusting the evidence of your heart? How about trusting that when all is said and done, it's really only love that prevails? And I don't mean this in a mushy way, like a rom-com or something. I'm just speaking from my own experience. Of course, I'm not the only one who ever said this. I mean, plenty of people have said this. But when bad things happen, when you lose things that you love, I mean, not when you lose things that you really love, when you lose people that you love, when you lose your identity, when you lose your community, whatever happens. I mean, these things have happened to other people in communities and war and so forth. What have you got left? Your stupid judgment? Your harshness? Well, of course, you can go that route. You can go with bitterness. But something more beautiful, more centering, more welcoming, more returning to the source is when you see everything with love. that we have things that we might have worked really, really hard for. Sometimes we get to keep them and sometimes we don't. And when we don't, everybody has their own way of coping. But mine is to remember the treasure that it was to once have it, to feel the gratitude that I did indeed taste it, that it filled my life for many years. And then I have that memory and it softened me. It just softened me. I've been on a long road because I'm old. But these are the conclusions. Well, I can't say that everybody comes to the same conclusion, but these are the conclusions that I've come to, a kind of softness and a kindness, especially when people are behaving badly or when you lose things. You can't, it doesn't change anything, all this judgment and screaming and theater and whatever's going on now. It doesn't really change the fundamentals. So remember the truth of your heart and come from that place and greet anger and hatred with compassion and understanding, no matter how hard that is, because there are forces other than anger and hatred and violence, and we have to represent that. There has to be pushback. There are many, many, many decent people in this country and in the world. And those are the people we have to unite with. And I say this because I know each of us, or I can certainly speak for me, we know we have limited power. We know we have very limited power. We're not changing the laws and we're not running the country and so on. But still, amazing things happen. There was a woman in the Midwest who came here and overstayed her visa. She was from Hong Kong. Can't remember her name. But anyway, she had been here for like 40 years in a small Midwestern town where she worked in a restaurant and volunteered at the church and so on. She was very loved. And ICE came and got her and deported her. And the entire community, which, by the way, is a conservative community, worked to get her back. She's been released recently. She's come back into the community. I think they'll still have to do work about trying to get her to be here legally. But you can see how a few people with no power can make a change. So I'm going to make sounds now, and I want you to relax and receive and be hopeful. At the end of my sounding, there'll be an opportunity for you to just rest and, kind of have the sounds be absorbed in you, and we'll end with your making a few sounds yourself. Thank you for joining me today and being part of our community. I invite you to join us every Sunday at noon Eastern Time for the full live experience. Wishing you a wonderful week, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Visit greatoctave.com for more details about these webcasts, our newsletter, donations, and more.